My name is Ethan Callahan. I'm 27 and live in Chicago now, though I grew up on the gray, wind-swept beaches of Nova Scotia. By day, I'm a project manager for a mid-size advertising agency. A job that looks better on paper than it feels at midnight when deadlines are breathing down your neck. This is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, Saw Her Crying. Then she told me, "Will you stay?" It begins on a rainy October evening, the kind of rain that makes the glass towers of downtown shimmer like bruised mirrors. I'd stayed late at the office, going over a campaign brief for our newest client, when I saw her sitting alone in the corner conference room. She was facing the window, a single desk lamp casting a halo of light around her. At first, I thought she was just tired, but then I realized her shoulders were trembling. Her name was Lila Spencer, our senior art director. Brilliant, untouchable, with the kind of confidence that could silence a boardroom. She and I had worked together for months, but we'd never been more than polite colleagues exchanging ideas across conference tables. Seeing her crying felt like glimpsing a private planet through a crack in the sky. I hesitated at the door, my palm hovering over the frame. My instincts screamed to back away. What if she resented me intruding on something personal? Yet something deeper, maybe the part of me that remembered my mother's quiet breakdowns after my father left, compelled me forward. "Lila?" My voice was softer than I expected. She turned, mascara smudged under her eyes, hair loose from its usual knot. For a heartbeat, she didn't speak, only blinked at me as though deciding whether I was real. Then she inhaled sharp and shallow. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice cracked on the last word. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. "You don't look fine." A half laugh, half sob escaped her. "Well, you're observant." She reached for a tissue but missed. I handed it to her. "Bad day. Bad year," she whispered. "But it's nothing. You should." "I can stay," I said, surprising myself. "If you want." Her eyes flicked up to mine, and in them I saw not just sadness but exhaustion. A bone-deep weariness that felt too heavy for one person to carry. "Will you stay?" she asked quietly. The question landed between us like a fragile bird. I nodded. For a while, we sat in silence, the city's neon bleeding across the rain-spattered glass. When she finally spoke, her words tumbled out in fragments. Her father's illness back in Vermont, a brother who hadn't called in months, the pressure at work to deliver yet another award-winning campaign. She spoke about the mask she wore every day, the one that made her seem invincible. "You ever feel like you're a brand you can't keep up with?" she asked. "All the time," I said. "But brands can change." She smiled faintly at that. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. We started collaborating more closely, lingering after meetings, swapping jokes by the coffee machine. It was subtle at first. A brush of hands over a mood board, a shared cab when the subway broke down. But underneath it all was an undercurrent I couldn't ignore. At the same time, the agency was a pressure cooker. Our creative director, Thomas, a man who thrived on rivalry, began to notice our connection. He started assigning us to separate teams, then criticizing our work with a sharpness that felt personal. "Focus on the job, Ethan," he warned me one evening as we left the office. "Don't let your extracurricular interests ruin your career." I wanted to tell him he was imagining things, but the truth was he wasn't. I was falling for Lila, and it scared me. One Friday night, after we'd wrapped up a brutal pitch, Lila invited me to her apartment for a nightcap. She lived in a converted warehouse near the river, all exposed brick and high ceilings, the kind of place that looked like it belonged in a magazine. But the moment I stepped inside, I sensed the chaos beneath the curated surface. Stacks of unopened mail, a withering fern by the window, a photo of her father in a hospital bed half hidden under papers. She poured us whiskey, her hands trembling slightly. "You ever feel like you're two people?" she asked. "The one everyone sees and the one you really are?" I looked at her, the city's glow tracing her cheekbones. Every day, we talked until the bottle was half empty, about our families, our dreams, the ways we'd learned to survive. She told me about her brother, Andrew, who'd disappeared into addiction, and about the guilt she carried for not saving him. I told her about my father leaving when I was 12, about the quiet resentment that still burned in me. At some point, she reached for my hand. It was such a small gesture, yet it felt like a door unlocking. But before anything more could happen, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen, and all the color drained from her face. "It's my brother," she whispered. She answered. I couldn't hear the words on the other end, but I saw her expression collapse. "No," she said. Then again, "No, please." When she hung up, she stood there for a moment, swaying as though the floor had tilted. "What happened?" I asked. "He's in trouble," she said hoarsely. He owes someone money, a lot of money." And there, she broke off. I stepped closer. "Lila, look at me. We'll figure this out." Her eyes glistened. "You don't know what you're saying. These people, they're dangerous." A chill slid down my spine. This was no longer about long hours and office politics. This was something darker, something I wasn't sure I was ready to step into. Yet as I looked at her, trembling in her own apartment, I knew I couldn't walk away. "Tell me everything," I said, and she did. The story spilled out. Andrew had borrowed from the wrong people, a shadowy network of loan sharks operating out of a club on the south side. He'd promised to pay them back after a big score, but the score had fallen through. Now they were threatening him and by extension, her. "I'm scared, Ethan," she whispered. "I don't know what to do." I squeezed her hand. "We'll find a way." The room felt heavy with secrets. Outside, the river churned under the streetlights. Inside, two people sat at a kitchen table, hearts hammering, about to cross a line neither of them could uncross. For the next few days, work became a blur of deadlines and whispered phone calls. Lila was still the polished, razor-sharp art director in the office, but every so often I caught a flicker of panic in her eyes. In the evenings we would meet in quiet bars or at my apartment, plotting ways to help Andrew without attracting attention. At first, I told myself I was simply helping a colleague in trouble. But somewhere between the hushed conversations and the brush of her fingers over mine, my motives blurred. I wanted to protect her, not just because it was the right thing to do, but because she'd slipped past my defenses and set up camp inside my chest. One night we were sitting on my worn leather couch, a map of Chicago spread between us, notes scribbled on sticky pads. "I met Andrew once," she murmured. "When he was clean. He was brilliant, Ethan. Quick with numbers, full of ideas. Now," her voice broke. I touched her shoulder. "He's still your brother." She leaned into me, and for a heartbeat it felt like the world had narrowed to just us. Then my phone buzzed. A message from our creative director. "Big client dinner tomorrow. Both of you. Mandatory. Thomas is watching us," I said. She exhaled. "I know. He probably thinks we're sleeping together." "We're not," I said, though my heart pounded at how close the words were to becoming a lie. That dinner the next night felt like walking a tightrope. Thomas kept making sly remarks about keeping professional boundaries, while his eyes flicked between us. I tried to focus on the client, but all I could think about was the bruise-like shadow under Lila's eyes and the tremor in her hand as she lifted her wineglass. Halfway through the evening, she excused herself to take a call. When she returned, she looked pale. "Andrew," she mouthed. "We left early under the guise of a work emergency." In the taxi, she stared out the window, biting her lip. "They've given him until Friday," she said. "If he doesn't pay." "Where is he now?" "Some motel near O'Hare. Hiding." I hesitated. "Let's go see him." Her head snapped around. "Ethan, no. These people. I'm not letting you do this alone." The next evening, after our last meeting, we drove out to the motel. The parking lot was a wasteland of broken glass and flickering streetlights. Andrew opened the door before we even knocked. He looked nothing like the man she'd described. Gaunt, jittery, eyes darting like trapped birds. "You shouldn't have come," he hissed. "They're watching me. They're watching everything," Lila shot back. "What did you do?" It was supposed to be a sure thing, a numbers game. I was going to double it, pay them back, walk away. But the guy bailed. And now, she demanded, they want their money. How much? I asked. He named a figure that made my stomach flip. It was more than either of us had. Lila's voice softened. Andrew, we'll figure something out. He laughed bitterly. You can't. They don't negotiate. He cut himself off, glancing at me. Who's this? Someone trying to help, she said. Andrew shook his head. Get out while you can, man. My mess will swallow you. Back in the car, Lila's hands trembled on the steering wheel. We're running out of time. I stared at the dashboard, thinking of my savings account, the small nest egg I'd built over years of overtime. Enough for a down payment on a condo, or to bail out a stranger who was her brother. I can cover part of it, I said. Her head whipped toward me. No, I won't let you. I'm offering. You don't even know him. I know you, I said quietly. She looked at me for a long moment, then back at the road. Ethan, if anything happens to you. At that moment, a black SUV pulled out from a side street and began following us. My stomach tightened. Are you expecting anyone? I asked. No. The SUV stayed behind us for several blocks. Lila turned sharply onto a smaller road. It followed. Drive to somewhere crowded, I said. She swung into a 24-hour diner's parking lot. The SUV slowed, then kept going. We sat there, breathing hard. They're watching him, she whispered. Maybe us. I reached for her hand. Then we need a plan. That night at my apartment, we mapped out everything. Contacts, possible payment options, legal avenues. We were two professionals trying to solve a problem like a campaign brief, but the stakes were life and death. At one point, she stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. I'm so tired of pretending, she said. At work, in life, like I've got it all under control. I joined her at the window. You don't have to pretend with me. She turned, eyes wet. Ethan, I didn't think. I just kissed her. It wasn't a dramatic movie kiss. It was soft, hesitant, like two people leaning toward warmth in a cold room. But when she pressed her forehead to mine afterward, something shifted between us. We were no longer just co-workers caught in a crisis. Still, even as my heart swelled, a voice in the back of my mind whispered, You're in over your head. 2 days later, the crisis reached its breaking point. Andrew called in the middle of a client presentation, voice shaking. They've taken my car. Said I'm next. Please, Lila. She left the room pale as paper. I followed. We have to go to the police, I said. They'll kill him if we do. Then what? I don't know, she whispered. I made a decision then that would change everything. I'll pay them. No. Yes, I have the money. We meet them, give it to them, and this ends. Her face crumpled. Ethan, you don't understand. I do. I took her hands. I'm not letting you lose him. The meeting was set for Friday night at a club on the south side. Friday night came down like a curtain. The south side was slick with rain, neon puddles collecting in the gutters. The club was a low building with a steel door and no sign, bass thudding through its walls like a heartbeat. Lila gripped my arm as we approached. We shouldn't be here. We don't have a choice, I said. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and sweat. Men in leather jackets and heavy watches loitered near the bar. A man with a shaved head and a gold tooth beckoned us to a back room. Andrew was already there. He looked even thinner than before, shadows under his eyes, a twitch in his jaw. You brought it? The gold-toothed man asked. I handed him the envelope. My savings. Years of scraped-together overtime condensed into a brown packet. He thumbed through the bills, then nodded. We're square. I exhaled. Lila clutched her brother's arm. You're safe now, she whispered, but Andrew wouldn't meet her eyes. Then the gold-toothed man smiled. Almost forgot. He tossed a slip of paper onto the table. Numbers, dates, and names were scrawled across it. Your brother here? He's been running his own little side hustle. Betting with our money. Thought we wouldn't find out. Lila's head snapped toward Andrew. What? Andrew stared at the floor. It wasn't supposed to go this way. You lied to me? She said. I was trying to fix it, he muttered. The gold-toothed man chuckled. Family, huh? Always the best stories. Then he and his men filed out, leaving the three of us in the room. Lila's voice was shaking. You dragged me into this, Andrew. You dragged Ethan into this. Andrew finally looked up. I didn't ask him to pay. No, I said. But you knew she'd ask for help. For a moment, no one spoke. The bass from the club outside pulsed through the floorboards like a warning. Lila turned to me, tears brimming. I'm so sorry. I touched her shoulder. Let's just go. We left the club without looking back. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets shiny as obsidian. Andrew walked ahead of us, shoulders slumped, while Lila and I trailed behind. He's still my brother, she whispered, but I don't know who he is anymore. I slipped my hand into hers. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. At my apartment later, she sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. You gave up everything for someone you barely knew. I didn't give it up for him, I said softly. I gave it up for you. She looked at me then, really looked, as if seeing me for the first time. Why? Because somewhere between the boardroom and the bar and that night at your apartment, I said, I stopped wanting a safe life. I wanted one that mattered. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't deserve you. Maybe not, I said with a half smile. But you have me anyway. She laughed through her tears and rested her head on my shoulder. We stayed like that for a long time, listening to the city hum around us. Reflection. It's been 2 years since that night. Lila and I are still together, though everything changed after the club. Andrew went into rehab. He's slowly rebuilding his life. My savings are gone, but strangely, I don't miss them. Sometimes I think about that envelope of cash sliding across the table. It wasn't just money. It was a version of myself, the man who believed he could stay safe behind polite walls. Handing it over broke something in me, but also opened something else. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Love isn't the grand gestures you imagine when you're young. It's the quiet decisions in the middle of the night, the moments when you choose to stay even though every instinct says run. I saw her crying, and she asked me, will you stay? I stayed. And in staying, I found the kind of life I'd been too afraid to want.